What is the Schomburg Center? To me, it is home. The place where we come to see who we really are, not just somebody else's reflection of who we are.
The Schomburg Center is a place of culture, it's a place of history, it's a place of knowledge.
The Schomburg Center, to me, is a repository of all of the things that has documented our sense of worth as a people.
For me, that means that it is a place of immense power.
The Schomburg Center is a public research library and a cultural institution.
For the study of the Pan-African world.
It is perhaps the best in the world.
My Schomburg Center is Arturo Alfonso Schomburg.
Arturo Schomburg said, Black history and culture and intellect exists at a time when most people didn't believe that. He collected those evidences, and that became the beginning of the collection.
And it has expanded and has grown to where it is now a world-class institution.
It holds over 10 million items.
There's no parallel anywhere that brings to light what we as people of color have done, what we continue to do.
Black culture is all of culture. The universals that animate everyone's life happen here for all people.
The Schomburg, for me, is one of the center pillars of Harlem. When I started the journey of finding out about Red Rooster and Harlem, the very first place I went to was the Schomburg.
Researchers from around the world come and use what we have here.
I could not have written just about any of the books that I've written without the Schomburg Center's archives, resources.
The Schomburg Center is much more than a library. We encourage lifelong learning and exploration.
The Junior Scholars Program is a Saturday program with students from 5th grade to senior year in high school to help them learn about Black history and culture.
Learning about my history is important because it teaches me who I am.
The Schomburg Junior Scholars Program is going to do nothing but uplift them.
So many talented and brilliant people have walked the corridors of this amazing institution over the years. From Octavia Butler to Toni Morrison and James Baldwin, Ella Fitzgerald, Alvin Ailey, and Harry Belafonte, who graced the stage in this room of the American Negro Theater.
This place evokes great memories. It was a gift to us in our community to really try to find that space to reflect expressions of Black experience. I just knew that the environment and what I saw these young African Americans doing was a place I needed to be.
What is my Schomburg Center? I'm standing here at the Cosmogram, which underneath holds the ashes of the poet Langston Hughes. On the evening when this Cosmogram was dedicated, people began to empty out of the auditorium. A jazz trio struck up, and to my amazement, Amira Baraka went over and asked Maya Angelou for a dance. And they started to dance on top of the Cosmogram, on top of the ashes of Langston Hughes, and I felt what a fitting way to kiss the memory of Langston.
The Schomburg Center is a research institute and a library, but it's so much more than that.
There's something going on every day.
So many amazing people come here to talk about their creative craft, to share what inspires them. The Schomburg Center's collections help to tell stories even beyond our walls.
The Schomburg Center is here in this exhibition at MoMA, One-Way Ticket, Jacob Lawrence's Migration Series. We depend on the resources of the Schomburg to enable us to tell this story. Thinking about the implications of the past on the present is absolutely crucial for understanding the next steps, understanding what we have to do to go forward.
We today have the responsibility of making sure that new artists and activists, new scholars and poets know that this place continues to be a resource and a source of inspiration for the work that we must continue to do.
The Schomburg Center is knowledge.
The Schomburg Center, to me, is education.
The Schomburg Center is home, it is family, it is foundational.
The Schomburg Center is inspiration.
The Schomburg is with me in everything that I do.
Community, inside and out.
The Schomburg Center is us.
The Schomburg Center is you, and we invite each and every one of you to find your Schomburg Center.
Good evening. Yes, that video is always inspiring, and we're so glad that you decided to join us. My name is Novella Ford. I'm the Associate Director of Public Programs and Exhibitions here at the Schomburg Center, where we are dedicated to the collection, preservation, and interpretation of global Black experiences. We do that through conversations and film screenings, exhibitions, performances that are also book talks like the one that we'll have tonight, as we explore historical and contemporary narratives that continue to shape Harlem, this nation, as well as the world. Just want to let y'all know, as we prepare, in 2 years we will be celebrating our 100th anniversary. So I hope that you will be here, because it is because you've been here that we are able to celebrate that 100th anniversary. But before we get there, of course, we have some exciting programs coming up next month. So bear with me as I kind of run through a series of things that are coming up in April. We kick off April. Well, this is actually a lovely way to end March with Women's History Month, as well as, again, about to start National Poetry Month with Mahogany Browne. But following that, on April 5th, we have our Blacks in Seville and the travels of Arturo Schomburg. Right now, there is an exhibition that will open this week at the Met, and it follows the work of Juan Pereira, who was this enslaved artisan living in Spain. And so the conversation that we'll have next week is talking about finding the African diaspora in Spain with one of the co-curators of that exhibition, and also talking about Arturo Schomburg's travels to Seville, Spain in 26. So if you want to get into our archives and learn even a little bit more about Arturo Schomburg, I think this will be a really great conversation. Following that, the following week, we have the film Little Richard, I Am Everything. If you have not heard about this documentary, it is incredible. So I invite you to come back. We have a talk back with the director, Lisa Cortez, also Jason King, who is at NYU, who will become a dean over at USC. Filmmaker and executive producer Dee Rees will also join us, as well as moderated by Emil Wilbekin. Something that I forgot to mention that's also happening next week is our Conversations in Black Freedom Studies, which starts on the first Thursday of every month. And this conversation will look at new biographies, bringing us deeper understanding of more familiar freedom fighters like Paul Robeson, and lesser known, crucial lifelong activists like Sohara Simmons. Following that, we have part 1 of an oral history program documenting the work of Black curators, thinking about how Black curators really do shape the Black visual arts. In this evening's program, they will foreground the period between 1970s and 1980s, examining the works of Black curators whose exhibitions and writings offered alternative histories and interrogated systems of power as well as representation. We have Carnegie Hall Citywide, which is a concert series, a free concert series. It will feature Rahsaan Patterson. Anybody here know Rahsaan Patterson? Or remember? Yes, okay, thank you. I don't feel as young or old as I might be, but Rahsaan Patterson is this incredible R&B singer, and so he will be here in a free concert. We have our annual Schomburg Center Black Comic Book Festival. This will be its 11th year this year. We will be back in person. So I hope if you enjoy cosplay, if you enjoy Black creatives, if you enjoy fantasy and sci-fi, our Black Comic Book Festival will be back here on April 14th and 15th. Hopefully I have those dates right. April 14th and 15th here in person at the Schomburg Center. Last but not least, I'll tell you about our new exhibition that will open on May 1st. The public opening is at 5 p.m. and it's called Marking Time, Art in the Age of Mass Incarceration, which explores the impact of the U.S. prison system or contemporary visual art. This exhibition, presented across our 3 galleries, will highlight artists who are or who have been incarcerated alongside artists who have not been incarcerated, but whose practices interrogate the carceral state. This exhibition is curated by Dr. Nicole Fleetwood, who was a 2021 MacArthur Fellow. She was also a former Schomburg Scholar in Residence and is the current James Weldon Johnson Professor of Media at NYU. This is a traveling exhibition. It started at MoMA PS1, and so we're glad to bring it home here to Harlem to have these very important conversations around the carceral state that we find ourselves in. Of course, I invite you to learn more about the Schomburg Center and our upcoming programs by visiting our website at schomburg.org. Little Miss, are you done talking to us? I was ready to chat with you. So as we turn to tonight's program, thank you for joining us here in Harlem for Between the Lines, featuring Chrome Valley by Mahogany L. Browne. If you know Mahogany Browne, then you know she's a poet, a playwright, a novelist, a reader, a friend, a sister, a daughter, a peace in her heart, razor on her tongue. She is your homegirl with the hand grenade. She celebrates Black women in every single way possible. This multi-hyphenated talent is also an educator and an organizer. Browne is the executive director of Just Media, a media literacy initiative designed to support the groundwork of criminal justice leaders and community members. She is a friend of the Schomburg who has brought diverse literature initiatives like the Woke Baby Book Fair, which is usually part of our Schomburg Center Literary Festival taking place on June 17th, but I'll tell you more about that on another day. She is also a prolific writer. In addition to recent works, Chlorine Sky and Vinyl Moon, she has also written Woke, A Young Poet's Call to Justice, Woke Baby, Black Girl Magic. She has written stage plays, critical essays to accompany her half-dozen poetry collections, and another 6 anthologies as editor. One cannot say that Mahogany Browne wastes her time. She does not waste her time, she does not waste her words, and we are so glad that she decided to join us tonight. This book is described as an outstretched arm holding innocence in its seat as we approach a sharp, violent red light. When I read that comment, which I think was by Kimon Felix, I thought that is one of the most perfect descriptions I've ever read about a book. The book is described as the characters in Chrome Valley grapple with legacies of inherited trauma, but also revel in the beauty of the undaunted self-determination passed down from Black women to Black women. She will be accompanied by bassist Max Michael Jacob, who's a co-founder and executive director and bassist of the conductorless string ensemble Shattered Glass. Following their presentation, I will chat with Mahogany and also take some audience questions, so I hope you are here to not only hear, but also to ask questions. Please take this time to silence your cell phone, and also please refrain from using flash photography. With that said, please welcome Max, and soon to the stage will be Mahogany Browne.
Homer, Louisiana. 1. When you are a Black writer in America, it gets harder to ignore the bodies, to step over the nameless namesake and point apparatus to the sun. They say writing about the almost dead only gets harder. My grandmama sighs. Pray for them, baby. I think, God, is this the fight? To be black and beautiful and breathing? 2. When I say freedom, what I mean is American flag knotted in the spine and ripped from the root. When I say root, what I mean is Detroit red. What I mean is Malcolm X. What I mean is Barack Obama. What I mean is history repeating itself. What I mean is history rewriting itself. What I mean is apple pie with the slave owner on the side. 3. You know you black when no one wants to talk about how your black hair kink up into clean circles. How they white ass bathroom floor don't hide the coil curls like your mama's tan tiles do. So you crawl on all fours with toilet paper, tap water damp around your knuckles so no one notices that you notice that your kitchen is as nappy as they said it would be. And here you are, black ass, grown ass woman on all fours who stays saying her afro is beautiful, who been saying she love her black, who keeps saying she ain't afraid. 4. When I say root, what I mean is Fannie Lou Hamer. What I mean is size 10 and no laces. What I mean is history repeating itself. What I mean is history rewriting itself. What I mean is apple pie with the prison warden on the side. When I say side, what I mean is handcuffed and kicked, stripped and water hosed, bare and ass and thighs, debated on its firm during prime time. When I say prime time, what I mean is ratchet opera, hood rat antics turned fabulous, turned appropriated for honey boo boo child consumption. When I say consumption, what I mean is, oh, say can't you see? Miley Cyrus and Raven Simone got a TV show called America Ain't Got No Talent. But we twerk and shake and can sell anything on top of black woman's ass and turn it solid gold. 5. Your people come from Houma, Louisiana. And all you know is the tale of the night when your grandpa Lester stole your great-grandma Octavia and great-grandpa Nell from the spit-shine sharecropper into a dirt-poor freedom up north. How they threatened to lynch him and his dog before daybreak. How his slick mouth was a gunshot wound waiting, and you never heard him whistle Dixie. No. Only his southern twang riding high in Oakland, California. Brown cracked fists shield his eyes from the top of the porch every morning like prayer and watch the sunrise. The Blackest Night, 1993. Some of y'all was born then. Jesus came to the crib, saw the blackest girl with her box braids and hammer in hand, climbed past the steel-gated screen door, looked at the shorty with the gleaming scalp, shining bright black girl lips smack at the sight of Jesus. Everybody around these parts bend corners quick, so she like, where you been? She questions his arrival, late as the summer sunset, but still hot and on time. Praise be. Jesus don't hold grudges. Come right into the crib, black girl staring with salty eyes, as fly as he made her, and he like, that's good. The best time we had as a teenager was the last time we saw Dion alive. Sideline smack talker with unwelcoming eyes, boa constrictor of a boy. He took a girl's stuff even after she pushed him away. She tells us the story in the locker room, other girls earshot near. The newspaper bleeds his obituary. All our girl bodies hold up the steam-crusted walls. Me too. escapes a whimper from the echoing, the room now cold enough to clink our teeth. You ain't had freedom till you climb on bus 62 and head to the closest mall for a good seat at the girl fight. No one could tell us hella wasn't a word. We say it like a comma. We say it to keep the sadness slow. Before them girls jumped the new blue from up north, 4 girls stood on top of her limp body, the cobalt top torn from her impeccable frame. The frozen yogurt shop buzzing, buzzing, buzzing with a gang of girls in red tops and hella bloody shoes. Okay, so boom, I want to tell you a story. It goes like this. Your stomach is already hot with giggles cause you ain't never heard somebody worth something to listen to say the word slut like this. And I guess you right, but the story still needs to hold. The story still needs to be told about the new girl from Los Angeles and the time she moved into your neighborhood. Her first week smelled like a Sweet Valley High chapter, except she is nothing like Jessica. No blue-green eyes, no blonde hair, nothing except her girl shape and her dangerous eyes. And she is everything like you, except the boys like her. And not when no one is looking, and every day everyone is looking. Her acid-wash jeans announce she is not from here. She is different. You think you could be this type of different. You think you could want this type of different holding your name. After high school, after school, everyone walks home by the swallow of oak trees, near the quiet band and soccer posts furthest from the park. You want to hold the crowd. You want to follow the crowd to sit beneath the shade, but you have chores. But you have not been remembered yet. An acid-wash jeans girl is not your friend yet. So you have no real reason to pretend you belong. And the next day you try not to be impressed. Your mouth a silent oh. When you return to school, the new girl with acid-wash jeans is no longer shiny, no longer new, just another brown girl gone black and unwanted and almost closer to you. And her name is a bone in their mouths. All cause her acid-wash jeans were caught around her ankles at the park with one of the loudest swaggers. He claimed the prize. He raised his hands. He say with a barrage of snarls, she stink. She nasty. She let me. And after school, no one is walking with her. No one is following her, unless to laugh at her, call her fish girl, call her anything but her name. Okay, the best time. Before anyone can say you talk too loud, you turn up your volume for good measure. By now you've learned to protect yourself. By now you've perfected the art of swinging a girl by her hair, the grip of your fist when you wrench at her head and twist her jaw like a Barbie doll. Ain't no one safe. Not after someone left Tamika half burned and buried in the valley ditch. Trivia. What is a bullet? What dies when no matter whom it loves wrongly? What is a bullet? What is a hollowing instrument? What else is there? What is a bullet? What is a certain gone, a collapsing, or even an implosion, if you're lucky? What is a bullet? What is luck to a black body? What is a bullet? What is a new and improved lynching? So we just lost my sister unexpectedly. She passed away in her sleep 12 days ago. And so I'd like to dedicate this next section to her. These poems, she was near when they were happening. This is our childhood, and so this is for Erica Jackson. Grandma Coco's church is uppity. Everyone sings like a bad opera. More white people than black folks. Not enough black folk here. A neatly braided brown girl enters, the double doors close out the zephyr, the women in their choir robes swaying with their eyes closed. This is the reason Grandma Coco rides early on Saturdays, on Sundays. The reason she bellow her tenor bell. The second place she pray for Redbone, only second to the head of her wood dining room table. Grandma Coco loved her church. Love her church friends and them boring sermons. Love to bring her grandbabies a candle return to their dull eyes. Love to see they dresses clean and coarse curls pinned up on each side. She ain't noticed how they slouch in they seats. How they dog-ear the new Bibles with cable knit tights corkscrewed around the ankles, swallowing hymnlines whole. Grandma told you the story, orange rinds upturned on their backs beneath her fingertips. She grin and say she ain't care much about the sneaking around or the drugs or the mishandling money, and you believe her cause she got the silky hair you always want and the brown skin that promise you gonna be cute to someone other than your mama. One day. But today, your jerry curl is bubbling up a song on the back of your neck. A crisp onyx because the California sun is not as forgiving as your grandmother be. And she peel each orange, almost smile at the thought of your grandpa Dempsey, and everyone call him D, like his name's so sweet, you just gotta get it off the tongue, and he just one pretty, skinned, waved head, slick firecracker spit shine of a man. She smile, the type to wink at a woman, and watch her return with the chicken plate and 2 biscuits without her ever acknowledging the wife attached to the ring on his left hand. He the only husband quick enough to give Grandma 2 children before her mouth changed the locks on the front door. She sucked the Tishan flesh. Any man forget his God long enough to call you a black bitch? Be the first man to get gone. What we lost in the fire. She done gone and lost her mind. Gone black, blank rubble, rubbish piles and piles of smoke. Clear caved in chest. Spread beds burned before ashes spread down 95 South. In a land of Mary. In a land of Black and Mary. In a land where Redbone found clouds to corner her like he did once. She fled for her baby and her baby's baby. She think smoke can't find them there too. Like she can't see the clouds thick with almost when it spread way up north, up near the boulevard, where a planet cradles the biggest stones for homes. Here, her baby and her baby's baby find a lullaby in the belly of a still horse. Redbone hungry for hustle, gristle, crack, break, baby's jaw run slack. Her child, boomerang day mama sunshine to a southern state. With a cardinal's name for a nest, Redbone finds smoke there too. Smoke less gray, almost white, so white she dream clouds again, dream arms full of her baby's baby. She is always a fragment of a coast-sludged woman, always a mother, heaving grief the size of her only name. She be missing her own mother, swaddled in smoke and guilt. It kills everything. A people, a home, or a spirit. Yeah. guilt can kill a spirit too. If love is for the fishes, I breathe them in each night. A shallow breath of scaly skin, I breathe deep and think of the shrimp's crooked smile. I breathe deeper and am thankful for the lobster's claw. I know this is a type of love and dream for their flesh to never know harm nor hurt, to never know run and hide. I know this is a type of love because my cheeks grow warm, my hands fling at the stars. I dance a dance all my own. There is music in my chest. I know this is a kind of love because I think of my family, how they smile and I smile too. I always think of love in soft feather beds. The water is perfect for here, and when I close my eyes, I only see a garden growing upwards towards the sun. That is really a smile, and the water washes away the dust of my night screams. Ooh, love is an open door. Ooh, love is a boat swimming against a purple glory and syrup spun sugar, and I breathe and breathe and breathe. Love till we become. Thank you. Please make some noise for Max Michael Jacob. I'm not gonna start moving.
No, don't start moving stuff around.
This is how you know I'd be doing
You're
too much.
an old pro.
You saw me happen.
Yes.
I was like, and when we strike the set, what y'all need? Y'all need waters?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
This is the only place to be, if I'm honest. I think so.
Yeah.
Schomburg is like the home of every Black literary artist in our country, but really in the diaspora. This is like, it feels different here. I felt like I was home as soon as I started speaking. So thank you for keeping this space alive.
Yeah. Thank you, Mahogany. When you walk into a room, people feel like they're at home. They immediately feel your warmth. I watched you on stage at the PEN America Literary Awards, and immediately everybody was like, oh, no, we're here for this, because this woman is here. And I didn't know where to start this conversation. This collection broke my heart a little bit. So I want to talk a little bit about sort of where you were as you were writing these poems. You started the collection in Homer. So first I want you to help us locate you. Where are your people from? Where are you from?
Good question. My grandparents on my father's side, his parents, are from Homer, Louisiana, and Grandma Coco and Grandpa D, St. Louis, Missouri, and Texas, by way of Southern California. So I wanted to open up the book just at least showing that remnants of love, like where it begins, and there's no way to talk about a generation of people, especially affected by mass incarceration, affected by addiction, and not look at the ways in which violence steered us into this space in the first place, right? So if we're looking at Homer, Louisiana as my origin story, even that was like fraught in violence. And the love that created me was out of sheer desperation to not be destroyed. Yeah.
Well, then you've given me a perfect place to start. So I've been reading this collection, Black Women Writers at Work. Yes.
This is like the Bible. So good.
If you haven't picked up this version of the Bible, please go ahead and do so, get into it. But I have been reading Audre Lorde's, and so it's a collection of interviews that this writer, educator Claudia Tate was conducting with a lot of writers in the 70s that we know, Toni Morrison, Toni Cade-Bambara, and I mentioned Audre Lorde is in here as well. And one, it's just such a powerful interview, but she said something about survival. It is important to share how I know survival is survival, and not just a walk through the rain. She goes on to say, survival is in itself a victory. And that's what I was thinking about as I was reading this collection, thinking about how fraught girlhood can be, how fraught some Black girlhoods can be. And one, I was wondering about sort of the autobiographicalness of it, but also that you're on the other side of it, whether or not this resonates inside of you as autobiographical or not. So could you talk a little bit about survival and being on the other side?
That's wild. Word, yes. I love that Audre Lorde quote. So this is a 10-year excavation, and it began as an MFA dissertation. Shout out to debt. Had to make it sell, in itself for itself. At this point, I was like, what did I do all that debt for? And lightweight, like literature therapy, right? So I did not begin thinking that I was writing my survival song. I think I was just trying to archive the women that are never remembered, which are the women like my mother, someone who has suffered and survived crack addiction, like my father, who has been in my life, sure as my father, but in prison for the entirety of my life. And then all the women that keep these households going. So it was really important to make sure that their stories and their voices and the ways that they taught me to be a community member were preserved. So I was more interested in the archive before I realized that I was writing about. Yeah, I didn't know it was. I know I was therapizing or preparing myself for therapy, because then I just brought the book. I was like, girl, just deal with that, and then we'll talk.
Read this.
Tell me where to go,
and then ask me some questions.
I don't want to talk about it again, but read the book. 72 especially. I'm playing, but I had those moments where I was like, am I living this again? Am I remembering it clearly? And it required a lot of honest conversations. I interviewed a lot of family members. I did give them like red wine and drinks.
And how did that go? Because I mean, you are still the child, right, to these grown people, no matter how old you get, right? And so now you are further in grown people's business.
So much in the grown people's business, but that's where the wine comes in, because they don't know.
Okay.
They got a little tipsy, and I turned my little recorder on, and I just asked that one question.
Now, did you make it nostalgic? Did you give them box wine, or did you buy some
Absolutely
proper wine?
got the box wine. What? You have to go back to the glory.
Right.
I don't think I gave them box wine. I don't want to give them,
please don't.
Rot gut. Yeah. But when you had a choice, I gave them new choices. But I did make sure that I got them as free in the moment as possible, because I know how hard it is to talk about mistakes, right? As humans, we make mistakes. As a mother, I have a really difficult time listening to stories from my daughter, because how I remember it and how she remembers it, incredibly different.
Right.
So I was aware that would happen, and that's why I decided most of the poems that you see in here, if they say red bone, those are actual conversations that I had with my mom.
Right?
And so those were her words. I just like reframed them, reshaped them, made them poetic, but that's the story, right? And it can be dangerous.
Yeah.
It can be dangerous. But I was willing to go down. That was the hill I'm willing to die on. Was like, this is the story, y'all. This is our truth. And even if it doesn't feel good to remember, to know that we are here and we've survived is more important, and to make sure we don't keep doing it to our kids, right? So how do I tap out before I fall into such a depression that the only thing that feels like help is self-medication, right? How do I figure that out? And it's through these conversations that I think I was able to give myself some, a little levity, a little space. And I then was able to give my mom, my dad, and so many of the adults a lot of grace. And I forgave them for things they didn't even know kind of tortured me,
Right. Have they read it?
Yes. My mom did. My
What'd your
mom
mom
read
say?
it. She's excited.
Now, does your mom know who you are in the world? And I say that because, our parents or people closest to us are like, yeah, I know you do these things, and sometimes you get these awards, and sometimes you do these things.
It's so cute.
Right. Go get me some water out of the refrigerator, though. Right. So does she know the power that your words have on people?
I think she does. She tells me off, like Black Girl Magic is her favorite poem. So she knows what poems can do. And she calls me Mo, which is not my birth name, but it's my taken name. I changed my name, and she was not excited about that because she was like, I named you. And I was like, I know, but you named me after my dad. And there was a lot of, tension there. And I just want to like have my own name, my ownness.
So you chose that for yourself?
I did, I did. And that was a tough pill to swallow. But her with this text now, it's pretty interesting. Has moments where if I'm performing it, she can see like, oh, that's interesting, that's good. But if she's reading it, she gets into too much.
It's a whole nother place. It's a whole nother place.
Yeah.
Well,
and she does know who I am. I'm glad you asked that. Because she's watching now. Hey, girl. Love you, girl. My mom, that's my boo.
I miss Mom.
Yeah, she's having a time right now, just preparing for, this deep loss in our family. But she's always surprised to walk into spaces. But it's Black Girl Magic that she saw on PBS, which made her know who I was.
Now, do you know this Black Girl Magic offhand? Because I feel like the audience needs to hear.
I'll close with Black Girl Magic.
Okay.
But before that, I had been doing work for 15 years. And then I did PBS, and she's like, oh, it's for real now. Like, lady,
she's like, I know what PBS is, right?
This has been real, lady. This is real. And she said, yeah, but I saw it on PBS. It's different now.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
You got to meet her where she is.
Yes. I had to get on her level.
Well, when I also read this, I was hearing Sonia Sanchez and I was hearing Nikki Giovanni. One of the ways in which the language that they used was the language of their time, right? Or of a time. And I feel like similar things are happening here. So we were talking about your mom and aunts and people like that, but I also received some of this as a child who was born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s, and I can read and I can hear and I can see those kinds of locations of language here in the book. And so I'm just curious about sort of how you navigate language that's familiar to the ear in poetry to make it both sort of, I guess, sit inside of poetry,
in the canon,
but also is received, right, by multitude of audiences.
I think, one, Sonia Sanchez is iconic, mentor, goddess of all things. So when you say that, thank you. That's exactly who I was looking towards as I wrote in my voice, the way she would drop into jazz riffs. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are things that she did with the word on the page that if you weren't in the space, you may not know. But if you were in this space, it became very holy. It was very church. So I wanted to emulate that power, the power of making the familial tongue a church moment, a congregation moment. I want us to be able to listen to a poem and say amen.
Call and response.
Yeah. So when I said something about hella and someone laughed in the crowd, it was a moment of like, oh, that's right. They only say that in Cali.
Right.
But that's the thing. The thing is me sharing this story, but me casting that net and somebody tugging on the net, so I'm not alone. I'm not just casting out here by myself. We all are a part of this language landscape of this time. So yes, but she taught us, right?
She did.
If it wasn't her, it was Zora Neale Hurston who taught us that your tongue, your familiar tongue, how you speak at home, is just as important as what you say at the workplace, what you say to get a job. All those are necessary languages. One is not beneath the other.
That's right. That's right. Sonia Sanchez, I'm sure everybody here knows there is just such a rhythm to when she's reading.
Yes.
You can feel the music even if there isn't any music. Right. But you can also see that on the page, and I feel like when you perform your poetry, I can hear that too. But you also do a lot of accompaniment by music. So I'm curious about what you receive when you're offering your poetry with music that's different than when you're performing it without.
I feel like when I am performing alongside a dancer, a singer, a musician, the conversation is larger than me. The conversation becomes more about the humanity that we're all sharing and not just this one-way looking glass right? It becomes this window where we're looking back and forth to each other, and how Max responds to the line break, whereas how a dancer responds to my breath always changes the way in which I come back into the space. So I think that it's a soundtrack of its own, for sure. When I'm just reading it in, say, a poetry reading space, maybe a bookstore, something very clinical, so to speak, traditional.
Yeah.
I think that audience, specifically in those settings, there's a different kind of preparation for how they receive the work. So I found that I lean towards working in collaboration, because not everyone is a poet. Not everybody understands like enjambment and seshers, and they're like, what?
Right.
Why you didn't
Also
rhyme?
here.
Like,
Right, yeah.
your poem is 10 minutes. What's happening here, right? So you have to like give access points for all listeners and learners, but still keeping the integrity of the poem for those who may follow poetry, may study it, may be intrigued by the craft, but not taking away from either.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Well, speaking of craft, funny you should say that, because I'm interested in this poem, Jaundice.
Okay.
I feel like there's
What
some
page that
form,
is?
and I do not know. I have the advanced reading copy, but it's like the fourth poem.
Oh, we moved it.
Oh, okay.
I know, baby. Me too. Okay, so page 9. Okay, so this is where'd she go? There she is. Okay. This is a form. Let me think, because I haven't had enough coffee today.
So read the poem and then tell us what's happening in this form.
Okay. Jaundice. You came differently, thrashing your limbs until the blood spilled clean. Sun ain't even set before Bam claimed she got my smile. I thought he said spine. A disaster always got a woman's name attached to its arrival. You come just a howling, a yellow baby born too soon. The sun ain't even set before Bam claimed she got my smile. I thought he said spine. They say this is how the walls sweat with sin when a woman speaks. You come just a howling, a yellow baby born too soon. When you squealed a welcome song, I knew you'd be the thunder in my throat. They say this is how the walls sweat with sin when a woman speaks. Say her mouth is her greatest weapon and her tongue be a grenade pin unclipped. When you squealed a welcome song, I knew you'd be thunder in my throat. Knew I'd stretch sound across an Oakland intersection to save your adorn and tick. Say her mouth is her greatest weapon and her tongue be a grenade pin unclipped. Bam was a thief. He stole my sunshine when I threatened to change the locks on my heart. Knew I'd stretch sound across an Oakland intersection to save your adorn and tick. Eclipsed your smile under the safest parts of Oklahoma and promised to kill you before spring. Bam was a thief. He stole my sunshine when I threatened to change the locks on my heart. I got tired of his hands hoarding my memories. He got tired of my weapon getting in the way. Eclipsed your smile under the safest parts of Oklahoma and promised to kill you before spring. You, twister toxemia child, I knew you would be the birth of a different me. I got tired of his hands stealing my memories. He got tired of my weapon getting in the way, and you came differently, thrashing your limbs until the blood spilled clean. You twister toxemia child, I knew you would be the birth of a different me. A disaster always got a woman's name attached to its entrance. So, thank you. So the form, forgot the form title, and I know how to teach it. You basically have to take the first and third lines of a four-line stanza and repeat them first and third every time. So every single time, as you heard, the words come back, that same sentence comes back, but you have to build on the image differently. And there's a lot of those pieces in there where I'm trying to use form to break away from the trauma, right? Just like, oh yeah, I almost killed my mom with jaundice, right? My father did kidnap me and hid me in Oklahoma for half a year. And so she told me this story, and I was like, that's a lot. Like,
right.
I can't do all
just
that.
tell that straight.
I can't tell that, and then the domestic violence, and then like, it was just a lot. So the form, I use a palindrome in here. I have a poem and a footnote. That allowed a little breath for me to tell really painful stories, but the form allowed it to switch up. So I was more worried about sticking the landing rather than like affected by all of the trauma.
All of the trauma.
Yeah.
I am amazed at you. Really, you amaze me, Mahogany. You do so much with the word, which is obviously your gift, which you've obviously, to me at least, made your purpose in terms of how you move about the world in the various ways that you do so. And we can talk about the plays and we can talk about the work that you do with Just Media, but I was interested in learning and knowing that you also support other artists in other disciplines in helping them find their voice or strengthen their voice, right? Whether or not through the written word or through performance. So could you talk a little bit about your work doing that?
That's so funny. Yes, I did not know that that was a job. I started at the New Eurekan Poets Cafe as running the Friday night slam and then directing the poetry programming in 2006-07. And at first it was just like, oh, I'm just hosting this thing on Friday nights. And then I realized, no, we have a large poetry performance contingency in the East Coast. There is no standard for how we're treated, how we tour, what the rates should be. And there really is no standard for how those poets show up. How do you teach? And that's quality. How do you perform? How, do you show up early? Like, we didn't have those things written down. We had a couple of notes from our elders, Amiri Baraka, if you knew him, you could ask him questions, right? Sister Sonia, she'll tell you to date, like, we wasn't in the times. Like, it took us forever to get there. So we had to build it. I had to build something from like things that I did not know, but kind of gathered from various spaces. And that was the beginning of me feeling like a communal artist. How can I manage and unionize? This performing artist space. Yeah. And I was there for 13 years doing that. And then it went from me coaching different age ranges, from the Youth Poet Laureates to the New York teens that slammed and represented New York at the International Poetry Festival, to the college scene, helping them with their poems. They went on to represent New York City, specifically, I think it was Brooklyn College I worked with, and NYU. And then finally, I kind of graduated into like, from the adult poetry world to like this new space. And then the last couple of years, I've been working with dancers, like Hope Boykin, who is like above and beyond, right? Yeah. An amazing choreographer, an amazing businesswoman, but also like an amazing writer. Yeah. And to be able to sit next to her and just kind of help midwife those ideas in the same ways that I did that with youth poets and younger poets who are coming into the world as adult poets, it just felt like, it felt easy. I didn't realize that it wasn't happening in that way. And when I sat down with her, I was like, oh, I love this. Right. But I love this with you, Hope. You know what I mean? So you have to be mindful and discern how many times can you expand this coaching pool. And I think with the 13 years at the cafe, I wasn't able to work on my work. So the year I left, January 19, I left, I had 6 books, a play, an article for Washington Post, and a film written of my work. And that had been like, it took 6 months after 13 years of working on other people's stuff. Yeah. So I realized, okay, I need to like turn it back in. But working with folks one-off here and there, it's really good for me because it teaches me, it reminds me of what I want to learn as an artist. Right. And what you can always get better. Yeah. You can always get better.
So I was going to ask you, how do you fit your writing into your life? Because listen, I'll see Mahogany and Mo, And she'll be like, oh, I'm about to fly to this place, and then I'll be back in New York on this day, and then I have a meeting the very next morning, and then I'm gonna perform 2 other shows, but one show is gonna be like in Jersey, and the other one is gonna be in New York.
This is fair.
And then I'm gonna be hosting a thing, and then I'll be back, so are you good?
Yeah.
And I'm like, but when? But and then she has a new book, and then she has a novel, and then you have Black Girl Magic.
Yes.
So how do you actually fit the writing into your life?
Great question. Prayer. Lots of prayer. Within the last couple of weeks, the writing has just been difficult, but before, I think I had a really good writing regimen where, you know, a couple of hours in the morning. I have Fridays are my studio day. That means no work, just writing. And even my staff at my nonprofit, it is, everybody's an artist. I tried to hire people who were working duality like me. And don't answer no emails on Friday, don't ask me for nothing, just do your art, that is your day. Because I understood how hard it was to like return to writing, to return to thinking about my art. Even, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have to write the poem, but if I'm thinking about the way the wind is moving, I'm thinking poetically, right? If I'm looking at Top Chef, season 19, Houston, what's up? Then I'm thinking, ooh, how this poem gonna look on this? You know, like I'm really always trying to find the poem in these different sources of light. And it doesn't always mean it's gonna be written down, but it has to be an incubation period for me. So that when it does evoke something, then I have to write it. If I'm writing to deadline, that's a whole different animal. Yeah.
And how do you move between all of these different forms of writing? Essay, your playwright. Is it different to write a collection of poetry versus writing a young adult novel in verse? Like how do you shift between all of those lanes?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. I think because poetry feels to me like, okay, so if you were in a video game and you could choose what your weapon would be, what would your weapon be? Because y'all know novella is the 1 and the 2, right? When it comes to art purveying, bar none. So there's a thing that you do. What is the thing? If you're in a video game, what's your weapon?
I don't know what the weapon would be called, but I would say that I'm a very good convener of desperate and similar things. I believe in the alchemy of things. That's my power is belief in an alchemy.
So you be making the gumbo.
I do. I do.
Cauldron.
I'll take that.
See, everything becomes a movement. So mine will be poetry. Poetry for me happens everywhere. So even when I wrote my novel in verse, it started out as a poem. Me and Lily ain't talking because she thinks she cute, because she think I ain't. And next thing I know, it was like, oh, that one poem became a narrative. And that one narrative now has 176 pages instead of this one moment. Right? But the poetry allowed me to see that the narrative could exist. When I had to figure out how to put that poem in verse into a novel form, that was a lot of fear, crying, snot crying too, child. I was snot crying. I was like, I'm gonna be horrible, it sucks, this is like not at all like a slam. Like I don't know if it's good until like they cancel my contract, right? So you have so many different things at stake, and you have to trust that you have a good squad. So when I did the novel in verse, I started with the poems, and I tried to make an arc like you would with any book, and then you print them out and you read it. And as you read it in a galley, for me, I'm very analog.
Same.
As I read it, I realized, oh no, this is terrible. Like there's holes here. I don't know who's talking. Who's a you anymore? So you have to have a squad. I sent all those papers to Jason Reynolds, and he was like, "All right, champ, you ready? The hard truth." And I was like, "If anybody's
the hardest working person in literature
all people,
today,
right? But you need that. You need someone who loves you enough to not let you go outside with your slip showing." And I went in with a first draft of 90 pages and came out with a 5th draft of 176 pages because someone cared enough to be like, I don't know who's talking here. Why'd you go back here? That don't make no sense. You said this already. Like just having the hard discussions.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think that you've talked about this before, not being afraid of the editing and the revision process, right? And so that means that you have to trust the people around you. And as a result, we get all of this incredible work. The last question that I have, and I hope if you all have questions that you'll start preparing, we have mics at the back of the room on each side. But I noticed that a handful of the most recent books sort of describe some sort of landscape of sorts. So Chrome Valley, you know, not landscapes, but maybe sort of ideas of space, you know, Vinyl Moon and Chlorine Sky. I'm just curious about the titles of these works.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's good. I didn't realize that they were all placed. That's good. Well, one, so it used to be Chlorine Summer, and then they told me it couldn't say summer because they would only could release it in the summertime.
What?
I was like, why? And they're like, well, YA is very specific. You have to like talk to the themes of the season. I was like, oh, okay. So then it became Chlorine Sky.
Okay.
And her name is Sky, which also was like, you know, 11th hour decision. Why do, Well, I guess I'm just trying to say black girls be everywhere, so catch it. I don't know.
Yes.
I never thought, that's a great question. Why do I have landscapes? Because we be everywhere. That is one thing that is, I say in even the first novel in verse, you deserve all the space you need. You get to take up space too. Every room you enter is one that like you have access to, is for you. Just reminding black girls not to play small, because I remember how difficult it was when I moved here from California. And the first thing someone said was like, all right, homegirl. And he wasn't black and we wasn't friends. So I was just like, why you say that? Like, why would you say that to me? And I was very aware really quickly of like, oh, this is a thing that happens. I think I was 23, so I didn't have enough. You know, you don't know. You know what happens in school, but you don't know what happens in the world. And then that happened in the office of my internship at XXL, and I was just like mind blown, because I knew something was happening, but I didn't have the articulation, right? And so from then on, I think everything that I wrote was a placemat or a timestamp of some sort for just like black girls to know that you belong here. Come on, this is yours too. And ain't nobody gonna say, what's up, homegirl, that's not your homie.
And you have the right to tell them so.
Boom.
That no.
Boom that.
Yeah, y'all can go ahead and clap it up for that. Do we have any questions? You do have to use the mic. We'll turn up the lights a little bit so that you can see.
All we need is one mic.
One mic. As we wait for them.
Okay, light. Y'all look pretty. Hi, friends.
You are so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
I really appreciate the fact that you allow yourself to put forth what is within you into the world, where there are many opinions and many thoughts and a lot of talk. So I have a double part question. The first part is, well, let me let you know that I'm also an artist and a single mom.
Okay.
That's my son right there. And I wanted to know, as an artist, how did you find and solidify your own voice? And the second question is, how did you take all of the trauma and the turmoil and make your art? Because as an artist, you know, for me, it would be in the depths of the darkness of the trying time where the most beautiful artwork would come about. How did you sit down with yourself on your every Friday and do that?
Those are great questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
And shout out to you, Mom. You young looking. All right. You better show them. You better show them. Supple, lifted. How did I solidify my voice? I feel like if you are really an artist, whatever your art is, you have to study it, right? So if that means, I've heard this so many times, I don't read poems. It's not something to be excited about. You shouldn't say that. You should read poems. And if there are, what you're saying is, I haven't found a poem that I read that made me feel something, then we're having a different discussion. Right. Because there are plenty of poems that have knocked me out of the box, right? Like I'm not the person who's like, you know, that Keats poem about the bird? I don't care. I don't care about Keats or the birds. Shout out to Keats though, shout out to you. No disrespect, that is, you know, a legend. But that's not my legend, right? That is a legend in the canon, but not the only way to understand the poems. And it's okay to just say, I don't understand this poet. Who else can I read to give me access? And so I studied. And if it wasn't for Cave Canem, I would have no idea where that art would have taken me. They allowed an actual workspace for me to learn from the Nikki Finneys and the Terrence Hayes and the Yona Harveys. They allowed me a space to learn from the Chris Abanis and the Claudia Rankines. And that's not promised. That's not promised that you have access to that. So looking for spaces that allow you to share your voice in a variety is the best thing. I was able to say, oh, I definitely am inspired by Sonia Sanchez, even though I was inspired by Salt and Pepper. So how do I mix them up? Got it, right? And then the craft, of course, the studying of the craft. That's one with solidifying. In regards to the trauma, what I worked with young people on is this exact thing. Writing the poem is not therapy. It is the beginning. It's therapeutic. It's beginning to understand what lies beneath the surface. It should be the thing you take to your therapist. It should not be the thing you write and sell and be like, I'm healed. Right. That ain't it, right? That's like you found the street, but you still don't have the address to the house. So it was easy for me to say, write the poem, but don't perform it. Because the first thing, you got to get it out of your body. And then once you write it and you get it out of your body, you can go back to it, and then you can see what the craft can do, what the voice can do, what the page can do. And there's more and more space for you to like be ready to have those really intense, painful discussions in a larger setting.
I was going to say, could you just talk a little bit about giving your writing time? Because this, you said, was crafted really over a 10-year period. And sometimes I think we think things happen immediately. And if it's not happening immediately, then somehow we're failing at whatever our craft is. So could you just say a little bit more, put a little more emphasis on giving yourself time?
Yeah. So this full-length collection is an amalgamation of 3 different chapbooks, which were published within the last 10 years. And then there are some prose that have never been published. But the time allowed me to like write it and see how do I feel when I read it out loud. And just like with young people, when I'm working with young people and they're like, I really want to talk about this traumatic moment. If they read the poem and they can't get through it because they're crying so much, it's like, that poem ain't ready to be heard. Like you got it off of you, which is great, because now you need to go back and figure out if it can be edited. Maybe it's just something that's just for you, but time allows you to remove the emotion from, I just told my truth, right? Your truth is super necessary, but your truth does not make it poetry. Editing makes it poetry. Studying makes it poetry. Really working on the line breaks makes it poetry. Working in, if you have a group of folks, even if it's 2 people, you and one other person, just really being a student of your work makes it the poem. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Hi.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing yourself, sharing your journey, and I'm writing a lot of notes. I would say my weapon, I think, was it weapon or gift?
Weapon.
Is mostly songwriting, and I'm starting to venture into other formats. And my question, you kind of answered my first part of the question, which was around healing, and I think the answer is the poem itself is not healing.
Right.
Writing the text itself is not healing, but it's the beginning of that process, and it might even allow you to know where you are in that journey.
Yes.
Like, I can relate to sobbing and not being able to share certain things.
Yeah.
But also, you know, work isn't always sad. Sometimes it's really exciting and exuberant, and it's like some of the joyous moments in our lives too. I just wanted to ask you how, working in different formats, this is new for me, I wanted to get your insight into how you know something is ready for maybe it's not a song. For me, it would be a song. Maybe it's not a song. Maybe it is a television show or a film or a novel or I don't know, some other kind of text. And how do you navigate a format that you've never utilized before?
Yes, great question. Thank you. What's your name?
Dee Dee Littlejohn.
Dee Dee Littlejohn. And what's your name, sis? Crystal Jasmine. I got to get the artist's name so we know each other, right? Word. I love that question because I love to say this out loud. Failing is not my fear. Fear is my fear, right? Failing is just me trying on some new shoes. Failing is me, you know, trying to buy a new car. Maybe that loan didn't come through, but it's getting me closer to like the end goal. So I don't mind trying different forms and failing at them. But like I said, I'm a student, so I go to people who do this. I did not write a play. I've written like one-woman shows, but that's not the same format all the time, template-wise. So when it was time to do Chlorine Sky as a play, I enlisted Ebony Hogan as a dramaturge. She's a part of NYU at one point. She's a slam poet that I knew, performance poet, but a playwright. And I just asked her, can you do this dramaturgy work with me? Like, take me under your wing and show me how to do this. And that's the only way that play was able to happen, right? For me to be able to say, okay, I am all these things in the world, and still I don't know how to do this. Taking off the bravado of like, I'm me. What do you mean? I've been doing this forever. Child, I don't know. What's that?
Right.
What do you mean block a stage, huh? Lights. Tech takes 4 hours. Did y'all know that? I didn't know tech takes 4 hours. Y'all probably like, what's tech? Exactly, that's me. I was like, what? 4 hours, why? I just wanna go have coffee, maybe write a poem. So learning the language, learning the industry, that is the only way that I'm able to like live amongst all these spaces, because I don't mind being a student. I don't have all the answers, I don't have it right. The one thing I know is poems. So I'll bring my poems and I'll ask them to teach me. And we had those moments where they're like, oh, we should say this. And I was like, absolutely not. No one's saying that, ever, right? Because that's my thing, that's my zhuzh. I got that, that's the weapon I know. So I can stand firmly there and they'll trust me, right? You're in spaces where people are like, I trust you because you got up there, you were honest, you couldn't do all the things, but you were able to like move most of this closer to the glory. So, you know, we're gonna give you grace in this learning space, and we're gonna learn from you too. Yeah, thank you for that question.
Hi.
Hi. What's your name?
Okay, hi. Hi, Mahogany. My name is Amari Simone, and you and Max did a lovely job. I love that book, and just to be able to see your evolution from poetry to like your play recently in Chicago, and like this book, you just spit out content and work and words so effortlessly, so it's a blessing to experience that.
You're gonna make me cry.
Period. One thing I did want to ask you about was just the fact that like you talked about trauma and survival, and your first poem within Chrome Valley talks about like just navigating that, being a Black woman writer and like you know, looking to spirituality and all these things. So because we recognize that, you know, that's not the work you do, you writing poems is not the work, and part of survival sometimes is like dissociation and running away from things, running away from the issues. How do you find a way to be still? Like, is there a ritual or routine where you like practice stillness so that the work can come to you and you can just flow with it?
I love that. Great question. I love meditating. That's a new for me. I wrote a meditation that I perform sometimes, and that's the stillness I really enjoy. Water. If there's a way I can be by water, I've learned that that is also extremely a healing property for me. So because I suffer from winter depression, like I live in Antigua 3 months out of the year. It sounds way more fancy. I can't do cold. It takes me out. So I'm by the water there. There's this, like, you know, bath houses or things that before COVID were really awesome. Finding ways for sauna, finding ways for stillness, not relying on happy hour. That is also a great way to be still. If I'm honest, I had to like learn that me like turning up doesn't mean I have to turn up, right? That just means I have to turn into the frequency of like, what do I need? And it ain't always that numbing solution.
Right.
Yeah. Which is very difficult. I didn't know. I got closer to that in the last couple of years. Very nice question. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's almost like when you got closer to yourself and that frequency, that's when you could realize that, oh, the turn up isn't the turn in, right?
It's not the turn in.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same way you feel after a performance. If the performance is really live and big, that adrenaline is still rushing, right? You're like, whoo, where we going now? And everybody's like, I'm going home, I'm sleepy.
Right.
And you're the only one there like, I feel like Lenny Kravitz right now. We need to go out. We need to make a party. Like, no, you don't. You probably need to like go cry, you know, do some tea.
See, I'm the opposite. I'll think that I want to go. I'm like, okay, let's go. And then I'm also the person who's like, okay, yeah, take me home.
Yeah.
Like I just needed to like loop the block right quick and then take me home.
Yeah. I just want to give you my energy.
Right.
I see you.
Exactly.
But see me leave.
See me leave. Yeah. Yeah. And then everybody else is like, what? Where'd you? Yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
I think this will be our last question.
Right.
Oh, do we have one? What's happening over here? Okay. You'll be our last question.
Hi, I'm Kai Diata Giovanni.
Hi, Kai. Yes, that name is poppin'. You're an artist?
Yes, I'm a poet. And I mean, first of all, I want to say, like, I'm so glad to be here, glad that I was invited. And especially since I've seen you before. And I remember, like, that moment thinking, like, I was already writing, but I remember thinking, like, okay, this is definitely, like, what I need to do. Like, there's nothing else that I can see, like, myself pushing forward with the same amount of passion. So my, like, question is, I have two questions. My first question is, how, like, when you were younger, my age, maybe a little bit older, how did you know where to go? Like, which spaces are the right spaces to, like, find yourself in? Because, like, I'm a poet, but I'm also a student, and I have, like, all these obligations, and how do I know what is the right direction to find myself in and to cultivate, like, what I need to do?
Yeah.
And my second question is, because you were talking about, like, people like Jason Reynolds, people who are, like, I also admire, and I'm like, how do you find the right people to help you on these journeys? Because you're talking about teams and the people you need to trust to push you even more forward than you can yourself. And how do you find those people in those spaces?
I would say that those questions are similar, and it's just about what is the safest space for you to grow. And I would say look towards spaces that may live in an institution but have a grassroots mission, like Schomburg, right? Like the NYPL, they have small, like, open mic events with Urban Word. That is a safer space. I just think that when we're looking out and we're like, where do I go? There's so many places to go, but where will you feel held is really what we should be asking, right? And only you know. So if you're in college, what is happening on your campus? If there ain't nothing happening on campus, if nothing is happening on your campus, who can you bring to the campus to make that space more, you know, fertile for you to grow? But there's plenty of online spaces. Feel free to hit me up. But Schomburg is a great way to start. They have an amazing teen joint. I think Urban Word is also having their regionals here. So they're a hub for youth voices. And I say youth as in 21 and whatever, right?
And sometimes it's gathering the people that you do know who are artists, right? And creating space for you all to sometimes just perform for each other, if performing is what we're talking about, you know? And sometimes the outgrowth of that may be actually finding a place for performance to happen for you all and others, right? And it might be a small cafe, like the number of small cafes that I used to attend, poetry, you know, Spit That used to be, you know, down in DC at this place called Mocha Hut, right? So like Bohemian Cavern, we can go on and on about those places. But, you know, there might be also ways in which it could be your college campus. It might just be room D24, you know, and it's like anybody who's a poet who wants to talk to each other, right? Like, it's also, I think, about looking to sort of how can you work with what you have, right? And build up sort of a little bit of confidence or whatever it is that you're looking for. And then you'll start to, I find when you step out, you will start to see the other opportunities, right? That might exist for you, or that you actually have it inside of you to start those spaces too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take your last question. I see you turning, but you're gonna ask your question, I know it.
What was your first poem inspired by?
That's great. What's your name?
Dasani.
Thank you, Dasani. My first poem was about a crush, and it was terrible. It was really
Was the crush terrible or the poem terrible?
Both, child. Both them bad. Rotten. It was not great, but when I performed it, I got a standing ovation, which is to say, what you decide is great is not necessarily what the world needs, right? What I thought, I'm gonna just do this poem because it was a dare. It's not really good. Who knows where this will go? I'm gonna sit down as soon as it's done. And then they stood up. I was like, oh, I wanna feel like this all the time. I wanna do this. I wanna do poems like this that make people stand up and see me and see themselves. I wanna be in community in that way. I want goosebumps every time. I want that. So I'm gonna do it. And I just gotta get better at it, because the first poem I definitely said something about star 69. Somebody dialed star 69. I don't know. This is how old school you know.
69.
Who remembers star 69? All right, that's my people. We was there. What's the caller ID? What's that sis?
Thank you for your question, Dasani.
Thank you so much, Dasani.
Well,
thank y'all.
I feel like we ended right back where we started.
Yes.
So there are two autobiographical details about Audre Lorde that I didn't know. One, her first poem was a love poem. And it is how she knew that, oh, this writing thing is the thing. Poetry is the thing that I must do. And it was figuring out poetry and finding poems that answered questions that she was asked before she was able to start writing her own poetry to continue answering these questions. Right. And the second thing was that she was head librarian at City College.
Yes, she was.
So before I ask you to go ahead and perform Black Girl Magic, what's one biographical piece of data that somebody would be surprised to know about Mahogany Browne?
Oh my. That I used to think I was gonna be a singer.
Something about that is not surprising.
I was in the choir, so I really thought I was gonna be a singer.
I could see the hair, I could see.
Yeah, and then age 16 hitting that voice change. A little flat.
Okay.
A little flat. Didn't work out for me. Luckily, I was able to pass on that joy to my daughter. She's an amazing singer. Let me think. What's the one thing? Yeah, I definitely sang Whitney Houston, I Believe the Children Are Our Future, in a solo.
Didn't we all though?
Did we? Everybody did that?
Oh, yes.
Oh my goodness. I don't feel so bad anymore. Wow. That's really good. Oh, okay. So I got in a very bad car accident at the age of 16. And so my memory, which is why I think I write so much about high school, is kind of truncated. Oh. So like remembering things, it's very difficult for me, but like high school, I remember everything, what everybody was wearing. It's like I'm frozen there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was a good question.
You're welcome.
And shout out to Audre Lorde.
Yes, shout out to Audre Lorde.
Yes.
So sprinkle us with a little of that Black girl magic, would you?
Yes. And I also was pointing because Audre Lorde's only agent and friend is sitting right there. Give it up for Charlotte Sheedy.
Oh, look at that.
Okay, I gotta stand up? I get to sit and do it?
It's whatever you would like to do.
Because I would be upset if my student just sat down.
There you go.
Okay, so this poem is for my mama. Because she loves Black Girl Magic and PBS. They say you ain't supposed to be here, Black girl. You ain't supposed to wear red lipstick. You ain't supposed to wear high heels. You ain't supposed to smile in public. You ain't supposed to smile nowhere, Black girl. You ain't supposed to be no more than a girlfriend. You ain't supposed to get married. You ain't supposed to want no dream that big. You ain't supposed to dream at all. You ain't supposed to do nothing but carry babies and carry felons and carry weaves and carry silence and carry families and carry confusion and carry a nation, but never an opinion. Because you ain't supposed to have nothing to say, Black girl, not unless it's a joke. Because you ain't supposed to love yourself, Black girl. You ain't supposed to find nothing worth saving in all that brown. You ain't supposed to know that Tina, Beyonce, Cicely, Shonda, rhymes, shine, 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 Black girl. You ain't supposed to love your mind. You ain't supposed to love. You ain't supposed to be loved up on. You only supposed to pose voodoo child, vixen style. You're supposed to pop out babies and hide the stretch marks. You're supposed to be still. So still they think you statue. So still they think you chalked outline. So still they keep thinking you stone. Until you look more Medusa, then Viola Davis. Until you sound more Shanae than Kerry Washington. Until you're more side-eyed than Michelle Obama on a Tuesday. But you tell them you are more than a hot comb and washing set. You are Kunta Kinte's kin. You are a Black girl worth remembering. And you are a threat knowing yourself. You are a threat loving yourself. You are a threat loving your kin. You are a threat loving your children. You Black girl magic. You Black girl fly. You Black girl bringing. You Black girl wonder. You Black girl shine. You Black girl bloom. You Black girl, and you turning into a beautiful Black woman right before our eyes. Thank you so much. Thank you.
We do have them for sale in our Schomburg shop, which is right past the security desk. So please meet us in the lobby, and Mahogany will look forward to talking to you there. Thank you all for joining us and being such an engaged audience.